Oh, I didn't realize I was live. Greetings and salutations. Hi. It's been a couple months since I've went live about this same subject. I'm back again because, of course, there is more that's been happening since I last went to do live. This is concerning the light company, electric company, Eversource. And in two, I went into why I thought, and I think generally you thought the same thing as to why the light company all of a sudden, two, three times, they're raising their rates. They have different reasons and what went into it. First, they invested $500,000 into wind investments, which they end up taking a loss. So to recoup that, they proposed. Now, you might have heard this in the last video, but I'm going to go over it again. They propose to add to the bill and push it towards the customers, which is commonly you and I. Now, this is wholly unfair because they're losing within the way it's regulated is through a thing which is PURA, which is, I believe, PURA stands for uh, Public Utility Regulatory Authorities. And here they have three people that sit as commissioners, and they have one person over them, which I believe is Melissa Gillette, I think. And once they submit their information to, they want the rate increases to them, they vote on it, and they vote yay or nay. Now, they vote, but we actually do have, if we have an objection, we do have a way of going and stating what why we object. There's a public open forum, I believe, to which it is if you look up on their site, but you really have to go through pages and pages of it to find out. So what they do is they take an application. I'm reading here from my notes here. They initiate a docket. It's a written legal testimony. They cross-examine the public hearings, and they can review if we submit public comments. Now, that's actually buried in, like I said, pages of their of on their site, which you have to go to, which I never knew personally. And then PURA issues a proposed final decision and then approves the majority vote. Three of the PURA commissioners require a meeting, and a financial decision affects the public because it determines the rates that the customers pay. Okay, like I said, I didn't know that. Now, we can participate in the public hearings and ask for them to send us a letter so you could actually go up there. But again, so the people that were in charge is they have a director named O'Connor. Let me go back to my notes here. Sorry about that. Okay, here it is. They have a chairman, Melissa Gillette. They have a vice chairman, John Batowski. This Marissa Gillette was hired by the governor to participate, to take over and run everything. She came from, I believe, another state. And then they have a vice chairman, John Batowski, who actually was in charge of before her, which they kept him on, and then Michael Carrion, who's another commissioner. Both commissioners was former state representatives, so it is political, as you can see that the governor are putting these people in place now. The Melissa Gillette thing, I couldn't tell you, why he came with that. So that's really where all that comes from. But again, going back to why these price hikes are outrageously high. The 500 and something million that they lost, they try to propose it as they needed to implement, and they always use an excuse of, Well, we have to put it in play because we have a moratorium on the bills and the back bills. So we're going to jump forward to today and what's going on since then. They have increased the rate hike two more times, and then they were supposed to the last rate hike jumped anywhere from 50 to 250 to 350 and up because they said they have to pay $181 million towards the back bills of this moratorium, and they put it in place starting last month. So everybody's bills went up last month. So basically, that's where they're coming from with that. Now, there was only one political person. He was a what do you call it? He was a um, Republican who has been sounding the alarm and trying to get legislation in about we need to address these issues. Now, he has been proposing that for the last legislative meetings. I believe I've seen him talk on TV. I also read an article, what he some of the things he was proposing, but it was kind of brushed aside. Nothing was never done. It was proposed to the governor and it was ignored by the governor. So here we are again today where they're coming back saying, hey, you guys owe all these millions of dollars. The legislation never took it up. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit because I'm not going to address that part of it. We're going to come to that in, I think, the next video. But we're going to go back to the part of which I have so far learned is that Pura is the one that regulates and says, okay, they come with a proposal. This is what you guys got to do to push forward the application to raise our rates. And then it's approved by them. Now, it has to be, I guess, approved by all three of them. And then it's incorporated once they've agreed to it. So here's where it's unfair because what you have shareholders and investing in wind shares, which was not profitable, and they had a net loss of close to 500 million. And then next thing you know, 400 and something $million is being proposed for a rate increase, but they're not dressing it up as that. They're not putting that in and say, well, we lost money. Where the unfair part comes in is if there's annual rate hikes, people can accept that. I can accept that. If the bill's going to increase, we can accept that because we know nothing is for free. But what what lies within the problem is the fact that you've lost money from an investment and now you want to put that on the backs of the taxpayers. You want to incorporate it in their bill, and we have to keep in mind that I looked this up personally that this company Eversource is primarily in the state besides the company UI. There's no other source that you could turn to and say, hey, you know what? I don't want to deal with them. And that needs to be addressed. It needs to be opened up to other competing or competitive bids from other companies. Now, are there other companies that can come in and supply? From what I believe, and I do have to double check this, that we did have a couple other, I think it's Millstone. We did have a couple other ones that was in play that were shut down, for various reasons. I believe they were saying they were outdated, but I have to check back on that, which I'll do by the time I do this next live. But we only have one major one. And they're always saying that the cost fluctuates and they have to buy. That's usually their excuse. But now it just seems like after a while, they're kind of not even like hiding that. Listen, they're beholden to shareholders. And if they're losing money and profit, the only way they're going to make up for that is by raising the rates. And we're trapped because who else can, unless you turn your power off, who else can you turn to? Can you just, if we had a competing company that said, hey, you know what, if they just keep raising the bills and stuff and you guys can just come in and we could just switch that off, then what they'll do, then of course they're not going to be trying to raise the prices all the time. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. But the main things that, and I didn't even notice you pay the bill and you just say, okay, they're raising the rates and this things are going up, things are more expensive, and that's something that's common that nobody's going to question. But when you just continue raising the prices and coming up with different excuses, how is you in investments now have to be laid at the feet of the people that are your customers, and that's where lies the price gouging comes on, because we're basically trapped. We're trapped in a situation where we, where I live, can we go over state lines and see if we could get electric from their millstone, from their different utility companies? That I am going to kind of look further into and stuff. And why hasn't this been proposed? That's one of my main components of this with the politicians, is why haven't, first the governor, why hasn't this, if we only have one main source, which is Millstone, over all these years, and he's been in office like 3 times. So you haven't looked for any, and I'll talk about solar, you haven't looked for any alternative of companies besides just this one basic one that we're stuck with. So we're literally being held hostage, because unless you turn off the power, where else can you turn to? We're like limited, and we're in this position, and no one's is speaking on this. And the one thing in the news that's not being spoken on is they just is like, oh, tough luck, the bill's going up and you have to pay it and take care of it. I haven't seen one news station, I haven't seen one news person look really delve deeper into why exactly is this going on, and is this connected to this, and why aren't politicians saying anything? Because they're big on, we're going to help the state, we're going to help the state. And oh yes, which I'll delve later into, we do have a massive surplus. So there's no alternatives that's being reached besides, hey, you could go and make a payment arrangement. That doesn't address the long-term problem, which seems to be uh, Eversource that's out of control. We're constantly price gouging and raising the rates under customers. At it, they could say they have reasons that will. That's questionable. But I'm gonna end that live right here, because I do need to look into, and I am going to delve into, and I have more stuff coming forward. So look for the next live where I will be giving you a few more better facts on their sources. And actually, in the next one, I do believe I'll break down as the investments of who has actually invested into Eversource and their income and how it's broken up, which you're going to find is a fascinating fact and stuff, because it's broken up. So it's starting to look, and it's crossed my mind, like not only is they're looking out for their their investors, but these investors seems to be these big groups, these big equity groups that is just looking to make money and profit. But the only way they can profit if they're losing money be probably later on today, because I do want to, just before I really put out the sources about who's investing in the money and break it down more, I just want to double check. I know I wrote it down. I just want to double check into and just see just how these big investors now are really dictating and controlling. So it's going from electricity to homes to, so it seems like everything. But again, I will reiterate that, and we'll review on the next live. I hope I gave you some bit of information, but if not, just keep it here, because this is worth looking into and to see. And then two, what are the solutions? That's one of the things, if you watch the live, if we could come up with some solutions that we could bring to the governor, I don't know, maybe we should pick it. I mean, that could be a thing too. But that's for the next stream that I do. So I'm going to stop this here. I'll be back with you later on this afternoon to do another live, and I'm going to end this now.